Okay. It's July 11th, 10 in the morning. We're in Oak Bay. I'm here with uh, Grandpa, and we're going to start our interview. Purpose of this just to pass on family wisdom and share some experience uh, with the family. So, Grandpa, why don't we just start with some basics? Your name, your birthday, and where you're born.
Okay. Name Robert Frank McGinn, named after my uncle Bob and a few other people who had that name, but that's my mother's brother. Frank after my grandfather, and born in Vancouver, May 1st, 1948. It was a Saturday.
And what about your parents' names, birthday, and birthplace?
My mother's name is she was born Frances Green, no middle name, in Birmingham, England, on December 23rd, 1919. My dad was born in Vancouver, October 31st, 1919. Same year, just a couple months apart. And Daniel John, named after several other people, but most recently, his father's name was Daniel John, so he was a Daniel Jr. And yeah, uh, so I don't know. You want me to go back any further than that?
No. So and then last kind of like statistical thing is, what are your children's names? Where were they born and their birthdays?
Okay, well they were all born in Kamloops, British Columbia. Oldest is Ryan Patrick McGinn. Second oldest Todd Robert McGinn, and third child is Erin Elizabeth. Ryan was born July 15th, 1972. Todd was born June 30th, 1974. And Erin was born May 26th, 1978, all in Kamloops.
You know what? I didn't say at the beginning. It is July 11th, but it's also 2024. I should say that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, you just did.
Okay, so I'm curious, what were your parents like when you were growing up?
Well, uh, I would say there's been a huge shift since then. My dad was quite authoritarian. Uh, he didn't ever even think about doing something that he said not to. Um, he didn't have a dad when he was growing up, so I don't know where it all comes from. But he was an interesting guy. I mean, he was in the military, and maybe that influenced things somewhat. But he he was a good father, uh, but there was never any affection. I think I wrote in one of the posts in McGinn Descendants that I don't, at my wedding, when I shook my dad's hand, I just went really, really weird and almost felt like I was going to collapse or something, because the thought came through my head that I don't ever remember him touching me. So, that influences lots of things. Um, but even further than that, the thing that I think of first with that particular question was about, touch and affection and stuff, is he had this belief that he didn't want my mom to have us on her lap too much and cuddle us too much because he thought we'd grow up gay. I mean, it was.
And was that pretty standard? Like
I don't know.
Most other kids in their homes?
I can't speak for other kids, but I would say it possibly was not particularly unusual.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the time. Where did he get all that from? I don't know. Again, he didn't have a father. But as you know, Alice, his mother, on the tape actually mentioned. She said that my grandfather was jealous of the kids and thought she gave them too much attention. So, this may go way back. I don't know.
What about your mom?
about my mom. Uh, she she was other than I would say me being aware of lack of affection and stuff. She was a good mom. Um,
Do you think she tried to fill that kind of what your dad wasn't giving for affection?
no, but she was conscious of the fact that he didn't want her to do that. So uh, my grandmother was much more motherly to me than my mother was in a way. And I was living 3 or 4 houses away from her. I was lucky enough to have that contact and that relationship. So um,
That was your mom's mom,
my
right?
mom's mom, Minnie Green, yeah, well, Minnie, yeah, Minnie Green. Um, yeah, yeah, I mean, my that generation, it wasn't unusual. I didn't feel like my father was particularly weird compared to other fathers. But if you did something and he was pissed off at you, his belt would be off in about 2 seconds. Your pants would be down, and when he figured you'd reacted enough, he quit. I mean, it wasn't ever like it was just standard. That's what happened. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, where did he get that from? Hell, if I know, I don't know.
Do you think he just was doing though what he felt was
Oh
like the
yeah,
right thing?
oh yeah, I
Like he
do.
wasn't trying to be
No, I don't think he
different or
saw
anything.
himself as abusive or anything like that, or doing anything that wasn't standard practice.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
It was just 1950 or in the 50s in Vancouver.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
So there's you, your two brothers, and your parents in your home. Who were you closest to in your home and why?
That's a good one. Uh, well, Greg was born in 52, so it's about, yeah, I saw that, three and a half, 3.5 years after me. You okay there?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but 3.5 years is a lot. And then Dave was born only 18 months after that. So they were always way closer to me.
With each other.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't associate with them that much. I had my own friends in the neighborhood, and they were just my little brothers. And until we got to be older, teenagers, where we spent time together at Sargent Bay on the Seashell Peninsula, then yeah, we would do a lot of exploring and walking together,
Mm-hmm.
which was probably a good thing, because other than that, we didn't do much together. We didn't play together, a little bit. I mean, my dad built this funky little cement pool in the backyard, and I can remember not only the three of us, but just about every kid in the neighborhood in this 5 by 6 pool. um, so yeah, I mean, we 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 just didn't hang out together, and I didn't I wasn't aware of their friends or anything like that. And then Dave, of course, that's 5.5 years uh, younger than me. Uh, he was just my little brother that I didn't pay much attention to. I mean, we did a bit, but not a lot. Um, yeah, and so we lived in that house where I was went home to when I was born, uh, as a family of five until 1962 when we moved to Richmond, and that was huge. It was a huge move, uh, because it was out in the country. It was farmland. It was an island, and where you could cycle to the river, and where you could get jobs picking fruit and stuff like that, and the big huge ditches that used to be in Richmond, where you could see muskrat, you could see big huge frogs, you could see big huge frogs that got squished on the road, 'cause
Mm-hmm.
it was rural. There were horses, and we went horseback riding. So that was a big shift, but we only stayed there 3 years. and then moved to Kamloops. So the shift to Kamloops, for me, best thing that ever happened in my life. Because if I had stayed in Richmond, I'm pretty sure I never would have gone to. I don't know if I would have gone to university. Certainly, maybe not become a dentist. Um, when I moved to Kamloops, I was at an age 16 or 17. It was 1965, so that was the year I turned 17. Um, First of all, it felt really nice. We lived in a really nice place, even though it was in a motel. We had a huge suite. I had my own room. We had an indoor pool, indoor sauna, games room with shuffleboard, and another big one was the pool table. And that's how I got my first friend when he found out I had a pool table in the place I lived. So, but that's where I really took off. I found friends easy, and the people I found friends with, became friends with, every single one of them, without exception, was planning to go to university and did go to university. There was none of that kind of talk in Richmond. Richmond was, I don't know what I just I just went to university because they did. And I've heard my brother Greg ask the question about going to university and why he did that. And he said, well, because my brother did.
It says a lot about the influence others can have on you. So it sounds kind of like you're saying, due to the family dynamic with your parents and the distance with your siblings, that you weren't really close with any of them until maybe you not super close, and you kind of found your own stride when you, like you're saying, when you moved
Yeah,
to Kamloops and you started
yeah.
to make your own friends.
It's then, it was at that time, like, yeah, even after I got married in 69, that I started to get closer to my brothers. I mean, Greg was my best man. Then, he got married and I was his best man. And then we went to England together, first time out of the country, at least except for the States, and toured England, Greg and Lily and Jan and I. And so we got pretty close. And then my brother got closer too, until we had a serious falling out about 20 years ago. So and I haven't hardly talked to him since then. He doesn't want to have anything to do with me, so it's the way it goes.
Hmm. Okay, so I'm curious, what do you think is the best thing that your dad and your mom taught you? And maybe it's something different between each of them.
The best thing they taught me, honestly, I guess I guess right and wrong,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I mean, scholastically, neither of them graduated from high school, so and they never ever kind of said, well, you're going to university, or I hope you go to university. Uh, it all came from somewhere in me, from other influences, not really from them. I mean, but that was the biggest. That was the thing in my life that changed my life the most, was going to university. Because up to that, it was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I haven't got a clue. You know, I always liked animals, and I thought that would enter into it at some point. And when I went to UBC, my first degree was in zoology, and it's kind of a focus of marine biology. But when I got to the end of that, it was like, what the hell? What the hell am I going to do as a marine biologist? I mean, most of those people, I mean, they can't all work at the Vancouver Aquarium or whatever, or
Mm-hmm.
Stanley Park. So I figured, this kind of job is like, first of all, you'd be away all the time. You know, anybody who's in fish and wildlife and stuff like that, they don't have a 9 to 5 job where they come home every night. Well, some do, but in any case. Now I forget the question, Dylan.
What the question was? What do you think is the best thing that your dad or your mom
Um,
taught you as you were? And it could have been any point in your life. I don't know,
yeah.
right? Um,
Well, I think their relationship was had an influence on me. I never saw them fight.
I remember you
Uh,
actually telling me that
I never
before.
saw them get drunk together. They'd have a drink sometimes, particularly in the summertime or when their friends came over. But uh, I had never witnessed anything where in my head might have said, "What the heck's going on here? They don't seem to be getting along." Never, ever. And my mother, again, it's in the book, told me uh, that when she was in elementary school, she always knew she would marry my dad. So, um, um, but they were good role models. I mean, my dad was never out of work. He went to work every day, came home at night. Friday night, he'd come home with fish and chips because it was Friday, and that's the way it was in those days, wrapped in newspaper.
Yeah.
And um, and mostly the parenting was from my mother. If she was pulling in my dad, it was usually because of discipline. He didn't parent very much.
No.
No, he but I can remember my mom's words. Well, you just wait till your dad comes up.
That scare you boys?
Yeah.
I bet.
Just a sec, Mom. I think I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay. So, when you were a child in the home, what were your everyday responsibilities look like?
um,
What would they
well,
look like?
I had them. Bedroom had to be clean. Might let you get away with it for a few hours, but you didn't leave it day to day. Um, when I was old enough, it was doing the dishes. It was cutting the lawn. I remember it was so hard for me. I mean, this is before I moved to Richmond, so I wasn't 14. I don't even know when I started, but we had a push mower. And if you remember the house that we lived in on 23rd Avenue, it
Mm-hmm.
might not have seemed like it was very steep, but it still was steep enough that you didn't let the grass get too long,
Yeah.
or you could hardly do it. And you had to sometimes, if it had been a few extra days, I'd have to take a run at it, and I'd go about 6 feet, and then I'd have to do it, and that was my job: cut the lawns, not all of them, front lawn, back lawn, boulevards, mostly the boulevards, but because the city didn't, they would never do
Yeah.
it. But, anyway, keep forgetting your question, Dylan.
That's all right.
About
Just
this, what I did around the house and stuff.
yeah. What did it look
My
like?
jobs.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean,
Who's doing the
I
laundry? Who's
I didn't have anything to do with
groceries?
that. I mean, my memories go back to Ringer washing machines when the clothes were dried on a line in the basement or on the line outside, if the weather was nice. No washer dryer, no dishwasher, no fridge, just a nice box. I mean, huge changes in the 50s. No TV until about 58 when we got a TV. Uh, the changes were just they came so fast. Um, and I remember every one of them. First there was CBC. Then it was like, oh, if we put up an antenna, and of course people are going to go, what do you mean? What's a TV antenna? Well, it's a thing it's on your roof that allows you to get a station from Bellingham, and then you can watch channel 12. And so, uh, but I would like my dad to have involved me more. Like he made me a boat, but he never said, "Here, you hold this, and we're gonna measure this." And he never taught me
Mm.
how to do carpentry, and obviously he knew how to do that. He built our house there with
Mm-hmm.
him and his brother and his brother-in-law, and so he really knew what he was doing around lumber and building, but mm, it wasn't like he had any interest in teaching me. So although when we built the place at Sargent Bay in the Seychelles Peninsula, that was about 1960. So I was about 12, 13 when we started to build there. And the one time, the only time I remember ever going anywhere with him that was sort of like father son was we went up there and there was no place to stay, so we had to stay in a hotel, a Peninsula hotel. Uh, and That was interesting. All these things are so crystal clear in my mind. I had a book with me. It was about a little green MG or something. And when we checked into the hotel, my dad didn't know what the hell to do. And he said, "I'm gonna go have a drink."
It was just the two of you.
There's the two of us, and I'm reading my book about some green MG and
What's an MG?
a Morgan Garages, a sports car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Uh, anyway, a British
Mm-hmm.
sports car, convertible.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So you know, he only knew what to do when we got up to the property, and then it was like I could help him somewhat. I could help him heft the logs up from the beach that he wanted for the pillars of our house, the foundation, and help him get them into a barrel of creosote so that they could soak in the creosote however long it was supposed to be. And so that's the most involved I was with my dad is around the building of that cabin at Sargent Bay. I remember going to the lumber, a place that was had used lumber,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually thought that the lumber that he was picking out was better than what they were selling at the lumber yards because it was first growth, old growth
Mm-hmm.
timber, uh, and uh, and in those days, they didn't just take a wrecking ball and demolish a house. They took it apart piece by piece, and the lumber got resold.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he did, and he would carefully pick out all the lumber and put it on the top of the car. You know how much you can get on the top of a car in the 50s, not much. And then we go all the way up to Seychelles Peninsula, unload it, sometimes carry it, sometimes float it across in the water, but and then haul it up to where he was building the place. So I have a lot of memories around that place. Probably almost more vivid memories at Seychelles than I do of living on 23rd Avenue, but in Vancouver. Of course, it was summer, and summer memories are always got a big place in I think a lot of people's memory
Mm-hmm.
brain.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he was more of like a person who was better with doing things than with people? Or do you think maybe
Oh, he
just
was pretty social,
yeah.
and he was also funny. I can remember when they had company over, and my dad would, as soon as he had a drink, and maybe he had two sometimes. Like I said, I never saw him anywhere close to drunk, but he, uh, everybody would be laughing at
Yeah.
something he said, um, and
So he's quite likable.
oh yeah, he was very social, and he was very likable, uh, and I think he it's one of the reasons he did well even like one part of his dream was to manage a hotel, which is what we moved up there to do in 1965, and he loved it. I could see that, the social part of it. Like, I, the summer was a different time, but the rest of the year it was all traveling salesmen,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew them all, and he got along with them all. He socialized with them all, um, and I mean, my mom did too because they did it as a couple, and he didn't want to be behind the front desk 24/7. But and so I was old enough then to actually be there and do some of that, check people in,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom and dad could get a little bit of time to themselves to do things. So
Okay. All right, let's talk about school a little bit.
yeah, it's cool.
What was your favorite subject in school?
History and science. I don't know. Can I pick one between history and science? They're so different. Uh, um, yeah, yeah. When you say that, I mean, uh, when I was in grade seven, I remember this particular time, and it sort of was. I guess it was social studies, maybe even, but we had to predict what the results would be of the election. So this would be like 61, maybe. I think, I don't know whether that was Diefenbaker, can't really remember. Anyway, there'd be 40 kids in the class, all boys, no mix, in grade seven or eight.
Did you didn't mix with women in school? Girls? Until when? In high school, did you?
After grade after grade eight, but grade seven was all boys. Um, and my history teacher, which was kind of social studies, he wanted us to predict the results of the election,
Mm-hmm.
and I nailed it. I nailed it. For every party, just I don't know where I got it from. It was just like, I was always pretty good at that. What's going to happen? And he was going, how did you know that? How did you get so close? Anyway, I did well enough in grade seven that they put me in a special class in grade eight. That was special because for a number of reasons. One is it was intended that all those boys going into grade eight would would finish high school in 4 years, and you only got to be in there because you got on the honor roll and you were scholastically assessed, and they figured, okay, that's who we're going to put in this special class. None of the other classes had French, so we had French, and again, all boys. Um, but and I did fine. I could tell I wasn't like at the very bottom of the class. I was somewhere in the middle, maybe, I don't know. But unfortunately, at the end of grade eight, we moved to Richmond, and
You went back.
I went into grade nine and had to do 9, 10, 11, 12. Um, so I don't ever know what ever happened to that experiment, which I thought about it before, but how do you find out? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, and then grade nine, of course, girls and boys were mixed. It was a junior high school, and in a brand new school in Richmond, first year it had opened.
Well, um, childhood memory. What's one of your best childhood memories you can think of, and why?
The best childhood memories, well, there'd be two things. One, uh, my relationship with my grandmother and doing things for her. Everything from painting fences or picking fruit in her yard or whatever. I just spent a lot of time with her, one on one in her kitchen and her yard. And childhood memories. Uh, I loved our yard, on 23rd Avenue. My dad, my dad was, to think of some of the ways, how was he a good dad? Well, you know, he built this concrete pool, which nobody else had anything like that. It wasn't very big, but he also I remember the way he constructed these 2x4s so that you could slide a 2x2 into them for badminton.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the kids would play badminton in our yard. So I don't remember spending any of those kind of things. I don't remember doing any of those kinds of things in other kids' yards or having their dads do anything that special. Um, so and I have very fond memories of things he did do for me. We didn't really do them together, but I can visualize him with these little bits of cedar. I don't even know where he got them, and then brown paper, and he makes a kite out of brown paper and sticks that flew. That on a windy day I could go to this field and
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, he did that.
Yeah, it sounds like I mean this is just me, me taking a guess at it, but like sounds like he had all the desires and intuition to be a good father, but maybe because his dad, what he didn't have a dad, like he didn't really know maybe exactly how to mentor or how to be
I know
closer with you.
exactly. I mean, and of course, as you know, it's multi-generational. I mean, even if he had had his dad didn't really, you know, my grandfather didn't have any of that either.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a book in my head which I may never write about generational trauma, but it's very interesting. It's very clear. You can clearly see what's going on, with everything from uh, the pluses and minuses of how good a father they were to alcoholism to abandonment, uh, and uh, I can't even imagine how it would go through his brain when his dad came back after 15 years and he was 17 years old and uh, stuck around for 2 or 3 years and buggered off again. So um, must be very different to be brought up by basically a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just changes so much, It's just anyway, yeah.
Do you have a favorite family trip? And you talked a little about Seashell and
Well,
Kamloops, but is there like a year or a time that really sticks out to you?
I absolutely loved the summers that we spent at Roberts Creek with my mom's sister and her husband and family. Because it was like you had to take a little ferry from Horseshoe Bay to Gibson's. That's where the ferry went in those days. And then that was the only connection with Vancouver, and still is. You got to take a ferry. Um, but there weren't very many people up there, and all these memories of, you know, going on hikes and bush and catching frogs and fishing, catching salmon. Um, it, that was a really special, very special. And then the only trip that really stands out in my mind besides that would be when we spent 2 weeks in 1958 in the Okanagan from Vernon to Osoyoos. We tented. We were tenting. My mom and dad and me and my brothers, and we had a tent set up at a campsite, which I think is still there on Okanagan Lake. And uh, yeah.
How long were those trips to Robert Creek?
Well, what would
Did you go
happen
for like
because my mom's sister lived there with her husband and kids, is that
who
we
was
would
that?
Kitty,
Kid?
Kate, is we would often go there for a long period of time, or not just a week or two, but in the summertime, there'd be my mom and me and my brothers, um, my mom's sister Mabel and her kids. I don't know where we all slept. Can't visualize that, but I mean, it was primitive. They had a well. That's how
Mm-hmm.
you got the water.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody would say, "Can you go get me a bucket of water?" And of course, my dad would come up on weekends,
Mm-hmm.
and that even happened at Sergeant Bay because he had a job to do, and
And mom and the boys
yeah,
would stay out
yeah.
camping in
So
the
so
summer.
at Sergeant Bay, it would be my mom and her sister Mabel, and my two cousins Georgia and Mark, and me and my two brothers.
Mm.
And every once in a while on weekends, we'd have guests and they'd come up with their kids. And again, I don't know where the hell everybody slept because it was like one room. Wasn't even divided up all that well. A funny story, funny story. I remember lying there one night, and that was always the thing. Like, okay, it's time to stop. It's time to go to sleep, everybody, because you go to sleep at the same time, right? Because
It's such a small place.
yeah, yeah. So there's just my mom and her sister, and
5 kids.
and five kids, and we were joking and being silly, and I made this comment because it was getting so ridiculous, and what I said was, uh, sounds like a whorehouse, but of course, what my aunt and my mom, they thought I was talking about a brothel.
Yeah.
So it was like everybody was laughing hysterically, but we had good times. There was no electricity, so we had a Coleman lantern, and they cooked on a wood stove.
Mm-hmm.
You had no source of electricity at all.
It sounds like through your childhood, and I don't know, maybe through your adulthood too, you got a lot of joy from being dutiful or like service to your family, helping your grandmother, helping probably at Robert Creek, helping with your dad.
Well, yeah, I don't.
Or is that fair to
Yeah,
say?
sort
Or?
of, but it has more to do with not so much to do with the service as the relationship. Like that's very relationship building, right? To
Mm-hmm.
do something for someone or with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I was doing was kind of immaterial, although, of course, I was helping. Uh, I mean, my grandmother at that time wasn't getting up in a pear tree to pick her pears, right? So,
Yeah.
uh, of course, I knew what I was doing was uh, that I was helping her, but it was more about the relationships.
Okay. Let me just check the time. I kind of want to do this in 30-minute increments, but let's see where we're
I
at.
don't care. I got the whole day.
We're at 39. Let's keep going. I got a couple more
Yeah.
questions. We can do 1 hour, easily. Uh, is there a childhood memory that you're especially proud of? Grades or sports, etc.
Okay, the one that pops into my head first is when I was in grade 5 in Vancouver, Lord Beaconsfield School. I was the fastest person in the school. And we had a competition with another elementary school called Renfrew Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
And so somewhere around May or whatever, we'd have this yearly competition. And because I was the fastest runner in the school, I actually got to be in the parade and sit in a car. It was so stupid, you know. There was the fastest girl, and she was a year older than me because I was the fastest, and I was only in grade 5 because
And it went up to grade 6?
went up to grade 6. So it was me in the car and her. I don't remember her name, but yeah, I was like, oh shit, I'm in a parade.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's funny the little things we remember, little
Yeah.
like that, proud moments as a
But
child.
I played sports in elementary school, particularly lacrosse team and track and field, and you know,
How many years did you play lacrosse? I never really think of you as a lacrosse player, but I just was never really into it myself. So,
I don't know because the thing that happened is in '62, um, after grade eight, we moved to Richmond, and that was the end of lacrosse. Lacrosse was kind of there was no lacrosse in Richmond. It was at that time kind of winding down as a sport that people played. But I played at Renfrew Park in Vancouver, same place my dad played, and my uncle Bob. And as I said in the book, my uncle Bob gave me his. Who's still alive at 97. He gave me his lacrosse stick, and it was it was like an antique or something. But I wasn't. I don't know. I must have had some mixed feelings about. Do I really feel good about this? Everybody else has got a brand new one. But yeah, it was kind of cool. After a while, I thought, yeah, this is really cool. I'm using his stick, and my dad, of course, had been big in both lacrosse and soccer, provincial cup and stuff like that when he was in school.
do you still have it? Did you have it at your place on Old Scott Road?
No, matter of fact, I think it just got left behind somewhere, either when we moved to Richmond or probably when we moved to Kamloops. And I don't even know. My mom might have said to me, You're not going to use this anymore, right?" I don't know. It just got. I don't know. Maybe it ended up in the garbage somewhere. I don't know.
Sorry, Uncle Bob, right?
Yeah, sorry, guy. Well, I didn't even know it was his stick. I'd forgotten it was his stick until. Uh, well, I guess I knew at the time, but yeah, I'd never thought of him as playing lacrosse, but I had his stick, so he must. Yeah.
All right, here's a bit of a different one. Do you remember ever getting into really big trouble as a kid, or did you ever sneak out frequently or get up to
Depends what you
mischief?
mean by a kid. The one that I think of first is when we lived in Richmond, so I was about
I'm thinking before
14.
graduating high school.
Yeah, I was about 14, 15, and about the time I'd started, mm, you know, doing things a little bit with my male friends, and and I remember this one night when I don't know what we were doing. There was nowhere to go or anything. We just walked, and we were walking along this country road, and we were
In
smoking.
Richmond.
We were smoking,
Yeah.
and I saw this car go by, and I thought, "Oh shit, I think that's my dad." But never talked about it. He never said anything to me, but I'm pretty sure he was checking us out.
And he knew.
I'm sure he did, but I don't know.
So he gave you a pass, it sounds like.
Gave me a pass on that one, yeah.
Maybe sometimes that's the right call with your kid, right? You don't come down
Sometimes, yeah.
You're
Sometimes,
just experimenting, maybe?
yeah.
Okay. What do you see as the biggest difference between the way kids are brought up today and the way you were raised?
Well, I posted something yesterday. You might have saw it. Don't give your 6-year-old an iPhone. Teach him to dig in the dirt, dig for worms in the dirt, and go fishing.
Mm-hmm.
The digital thing is it's definitely in the last generation totally changed how people converse, how they socialize, how they get along. Those are, I don't think we know the implications of that yet. I mean, certainly some people have wondered and have some opinions, but people don't talk on the phone anymore. They text. And so that produces a totally different human being, a totally different brain. And I don't think it's an improvement. I don't think we're doing ourselves a favor, because my take on teenagers today and kids growing up is they're not very social. They're socially retarded, in my opinion, to a large degree.
Meaning they're not as progressed. and like
Well,
social
well, well,
abilities.
well, communication, verbal communication has been something that's, been part of us for so many thousands of years, and there's not much verbal communication anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I find like myself, being born in '91, uh, is this generation that's very unique around our time. I mean,
mhm,
maybe everyone thinks they're unique, but I think one of the unique qualities of my generation is that we grew up with a childhood pre-internet, and then in our adolescence, we're exposed to the internet and social media became a thing. And so we kind of seen our parents who aren't as, let's say, technically inclined or adaptable as we are. And we also see these, let's say some of my cousins or some of the children
yeah,
nowadays, and that's all they know. They don't know a time before that where you had to go, like I did have to go in the yellow pages. And I agree with you. I think that's one of the struggles of our lifetime. And I think right now, I'm just going to say this anyways for the interview, is that there's no restrictions on children using social media. And I think there's been talk, and I think eventually it'll change that, there's a starting age of like maybe 16 or 13, or
yeah,
I don't know what it is,
yeah,
but that a point that we have to say that, what, do we love our children, and is this best for them?
yeah. Because kids today, like basically they've got relationships, but in a lot of cases it's primarily through social media. They're they're not even getting together physically. So um, it's it's a very worrying experiment, an experiment that we probably, it will be very difficult to limit or to stop, because it seems like regardless of what we think's best for us, our families, our country, uh, there's world trends that are just seem unstoppable. So, I mean, your brother, for example, he's not on WhatsApp anymore because he's so concerned about AI, and so now I'm communicating with him on Signal, which is the only thing he'll answer, and I don't even know what to say about that, because uh, I don't understand the danger of AI as I would really like to. Uh, Whether people are worrying about it too much or too little, but it's and of course the other thing is that it's not that things are changing, it's things are changing so fast
Mm.
that we don't hardly have time to assess them and make course corrections, because it's just all happening and we can't do anything about it. You know,
Yeah, it's almost like,
it's unstoppable almost.
yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think I have the last question, and then we can take a break, and we can
Yeah,
maybe go for a walk, and then we can either
sure.
do more or
Yeah,
we'll
whatever.
see how it goes.
I got
So
nothing on.
this is kind of like the last question I wrote under like childhood
Mm-hmm.
things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's how was love expressed in your family, or was it? We kind of talked a little bit how you said you don't really remember your dad. Did your mom do it? Express love for you, or your brothers ever affectionate?
My mom was always very conscious of what she believed is that my father thought if she gave us too much affection. Again, it sounds almost ridiculous that we would, as boys, because it was me and my two brothers, that, because I heard this more than once, like, you didn't like me doing that because you thought you'd grow up gay, you know. So you didn't. I don't. And I told you the story about it at my first wedding. I mean, parents didn't show physical uh, affection. Now, I can't tell you whether that's just my parents. I suspect it was quite standard,
Mm-hmm.
possibly more so because of my father being not having a father, and a mom that worked two or three jobs. I mean, can you imagine with my grandfather leaving in 1922 for 15 years. Can you imagine his mother raising 3 kids in the Depression?
Yeah, and there's very little Social Security then.
There was very little. You've seen the letter from
Mm-hmm.
the organization that sent her $5 or something. I mean, Christ, like, oh, good, we can get some butter now. But my dad has, he told me a lot about what it was like. It was rough. He would regularly put cardboard in his shoes because his soles had worn through, and which is ironic because his dad had been a shoemaker, but that's what they had. They had cardboard in their shoes.
Wow, I've never heard that.
I mean, you got a hole in your shoes. How do you fix it? Cardboard.
Wow.
So that's just one little example. Yeah.
Okay, well let's stop it there and we'll take a break.
Yeah.